Say Ya Ya presents Dallas Quinley and Shiloh Alexander.
Hi, this is Dallas Quinley, and I'm here with Shiloh Alexander, who is joining us on the cell phone. Today we are going to be talking about John 8, which many people of the Christian variety assume that Jesus or Yeshua here is replacing the law with grace. And this is the story of the adulterous woman that the Pharisees brought to Yeshua. And they were trying to tempt him to get him to go against the law of Moses or either to go against the law of Rome. And if he went against the law of Moses, then of course they could say he wasn't the Messiah and stuff. And so this is one reason why they were trying to trick him, and it had nothing to do with him replacing the law with grace. And I think Shiloh's going to start reading here in Deuteronomy. This is the law that they're bringing to Yeshua. This is what the law of Moses says. So this is kind of an introduction to let you know this is what it says in the law must happen. And then they're coming to Yeshua asking him what he thinks should happen. So
Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 22. When a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, then both of them shall die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. Thus ye shall purge the evil from Israel. We go to John 8:3. It says, And the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery, and having set her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. And in the Torah, Moses commanded us that such should be stoned. What then do you say? So obviously they're trying to trick Messiah here into basically breaking the laws of Moses. But if you go into Deuteronomy 22 again, you'll notice that it says both the man and the woman shall be brought to death. So my first question here is, when the Pharisees and such brought this woman to the Messiah, why didn't they have the man with them as well? Both are caught in adultery, both are supposed to be punished.
yeah, and not only are they both supposed to be punished, but there's also supposed to be 2 or 3 witnesses. And by the Pharisees not bringing the 2 or 3 witnesses, they are in fact themselves breaking Torah. And they're not even taking the woman where she's supposed to go. She's supposed to be taken to the elders, to the judges, to the court, to the judicial system, and instead they're bringing her to Yeshua. So Yeshua is not the authority, so to speak, to whether or not she should be stoned. They cannot stone her. That is to be carried out by a judicial system.
So we get the Pharisees trying to manipulate, basically trick Messiah into saying that it's okay to break Moses' law, or trick him into saying something other than what Moses had said. But what they're really doing already is they're already breaking the Torah, actually, because they only brought the woman, for one. So if we read on in John 8, starting at verse 6, and they said, trying him, so that they might accuse him. But Messiah, bending down, wrote on the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. But as they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her.
When the witnesses were called against someone, they would usually be the first ones to cast the first stone. And when he actually tells them, let those among you without sin cast the first stone, well, knowing that they had broke Torah because they brought this woman to him, which could not be condemned, and they had brought her and violated the Torah in a few areas, so they were guilty as well. So they could not cast the first stone because they were guilty. They had sin as well because they brought her to him in violation of the Torah. So according to the law, she was a free woman. She could not be condemned. And this is not Yeshua replacing the law with grace. The fact is that according to the law, she could not be found guilty.
I think the adulterous woman is a prime example of a couple of things. Obviously, it's a prime example of the hypocrisy that goes on in the church today, which in my opinion, churchites are your Pharisees and your self-righteous people who think they don't do anything wrong and always want to be the first one to condemn you, but won't actually take a look at their own transgressions or think they don't transgress the Torah at all. But so the first thing I think there is the hypocrisy amongst the self-righteous. And the second point I think Messiah is trying to make is that you can live a life that's free of breaking Torah, and it's not hard. So he wouldn't have said go and sin no more if he didn't think she could.
After the Torah was given, Yeshua said that it was not a burden. And the problem was that Israel did not have the desire, or they had a heart of stone. They were not willing to keep the law and chased after other gods and idols. So in the new covenant, this is what changes, is the heart of stone becomes a heart of flesh, and then gives you the helper, the Holy Spirit, to help you walk out your faith and obedience. And Paul tells us not to continue in sin, or we build up that which was torn down, which was the sin. And if we continue to be disobedient, then there is no sacrifice for sin. So the Pharisees came and they were trying to tempt him with the law of Moses, and Yeshua did not say, well, that's done away with, now we have grace. I don't even know of any place where Yeshua uses the word grace, really, in the Bible, but no, he was tested with the law of Moses. According to the law of Moses, he upheld what the law said, and then he told her to go and sin no more. And so even if she was guilty, there was no witnesses or no one there to condemn her. And Yeshua said he did not come to be a judge or to judge anyone when he came in the flesh. Now when he returns again, then he will be a judge. We have to remember that he is also the lawgiver. He's the one that gave the law to start with in the first place, so he's not going to abolish what he gave. It's his Father's will. He's not going to abolish his Father's will because he did not come to do his own will. He came to do the Father's will.
I mean, obviously condemnation lies in breaking Torah, transgressing the law. They didn't, bring her out there for some trifle, like going to a play, or, in our day it'd be a theater, or, some of the weird things that churchites think are sins. They're not, even the Pharisees aren't accusing her of something trifle. They're accusing her of adultery, which is breaking Torah. So these people were keeping Torah. They were following it. And granted, the Pharisees kind of added their own things to it, and it became more of a tradition of men than it did following the laws, but they were kind of peacockish in that they acted like they were perfect in front of everybody, but lived different lives outside or inside their homes. They would live different lives. They weren't being honest. I also noticed that Messiah never seems to really condemn a regular people. I noticed here in John 8, verse 15, Messiah is saying, you judge according to the flesh, I judge no one. But even if I do judge, my judgment is true, because I am not alone in it, but I and the Father who sent me. So even Messiah is saying that he doesn't judge from an outward appearance, which the self-righteous people do, the Pharisees, Sadducees. Those kind of people, they judge from an outward appearance. It's not a righteous judgment in any way, shape, or form. Righteous judgment lies in obeying Torah, and people that break the Torah, you're supposed to expose it, especially if they don't know they're actually breaking it.
And yeah, this is what the purpose of the law is actually to point you to the Messiah. And so if the law is abolished, then Paul says there is no sin where there is no law. So if there is no law, there is no transgression. So what are you repenting from? It's silly to think that the law has been abolished and that it was bondage or that it was too burdensome. The law is what shows us that we are sinners, and if it were not for the law, you would not know sin. So when we come to the Messiah, then we are to walk out our faith in obedience. If we are disobedient, we are in lawlessness, and we have to ask ourselves, why are we lawless? And we have to look at our hearts, because if we are following the Messiah, we should have the desire to want to follow him and do his will. And we're supposed to die to the flesh daily. We're supposed to kill the things of the flesh, like your desires to eat pork or whatever like that. You should die to those desires to be obedient to him, because what a silly thing to be disobedient about. If you want to eat something you're not supposed to, which is bad for you to start with, he gave you the laws for a reason, and to be disobedient, well, of course you're going to get sick, because he gave you the law for a reason. It's for your protection. Eating pork is called an abomination. That is equal to homosexuality, which is called an abomination, because abominations, they're against your body. And he's trying to protect your body. And his laws are about loving him and loving others. So to say that is bondage, I think that's just crazy.
Messiah usually would always condemned the leaders, the Pharisees, and those people who were actually like in charge of the flock, because they were hypocrites and they were robbing people of their money and making them keep stupid traditions that weren't even actually in the Moses' law, Torah. So he would go after those people, the Pharisees and the leaders of what I would call the leaders of the church today. I love the congregation, the assembly of the people who want to actually learn about the Father and his ways. I love those people, but they're not being taught that. They're not being taught to keep Torah in most of your churches these days, which is why I go after them.
Yeah, and the people in the churches are believing what they are being told, and to a certain extent, they are to blame, because they have Bibles and they have an internet and everything else, but the pastors are teaching them this dispensationalism that started hundreds of years ago. It didn't start with Messiah. That's not what he taught. He taught saved by grace through faith, and then you are obedient to him. You return to the Torah. The dispensationalism and replacement theology are teaching them that Torah has been abolished and that the church has replaced Israel, when we see in the Bible that he came for the lost sheep of Israel. You know, they make a whole sermon around one or two verses and cherry pick their Bible, and they don't teach what it really says. And, the denominations, they can only teach certain things. Certain denominations are not allowed to teach certain theologies or doctrines. And if they want that tax exemption or to keep their certification or whatever, they cannot teach that doctrine. So no one's going to teach against dispensationalism. There's like 4,000 different denominations of the Catholic Church, and they're disguised as Baptists and Pentecostals and Evangelicals and Methodists and Catholics, and they're all the same. They just have a few different doctrines here and there. But Yeshua was not replacing the law with grace. He was upholding the law. He did not tell the woman that he gave her grace. He told her to go and sin no more. And sin in 1 John 3:4 is defined as transgression of the law. And it's defined as transgression of the law because if there is no law, there is no sin. There is no condemnation. If you're doing works without faith, then they are worthless. They are just worthless rags. But if you have faith, then your obedience is counted as righteousness, because it's walking out your faith, and then your faith is counted as righteousness. So the law was not abolished, and he did not replace it with grace in this story. So we thank Shiloh Alexander for being with us on the phone. We appreciate your input, and we're looking forward to talking with him again in the next message. And until next time, shalom.